I met the girl who would become my wife at school. Sat in front of her in Year 10 English and art. We ended up together as a result of lots of youthful attraction, fair dose of hormones, maybe, not so romantically, but still true, maybe because of a largely unconscious inevitability that saw two well-suited and complementary kids find each other, and in that also find a very useful partnership for responding to some of life's challenges ahead of us. We fitted together well, and little did I understand just how much I would rely on her to fix the gaps in me that had been left by a less than perfect upbringing. She was my greatest therapist, my greatest influence, a teacher and facilitator for me. And being so young, we were 16, we managed growing up together. It was a partnership that was very good for both of us, and then down the track, good for our families, the kids when they came, and the community. A partnership that covered over much of the potential traps that had come with those dysfunctional upbringings offered in so many Aussie families in those days. It helped us solve the problems through working together. So here I am thinking things are pretty ordered, under control. Just when things felt largely resolved for the time being, we were suddenly swallowed by a cloud of chaos. What was an upset tummy for her became pain, then acute pain, and then a diagnosis of cancer. It was surreal. This led to a full-on storm of white coats, hospitals, treatments, and of course endless positive affirmations battling line by line with dark thoughts. Planning for the future gave way to present concerns, worry, stress, fear. What had been a sense of stability and capacity became frightening confusion, despair, and incompetence. In the following year, I discovered just what it meant to love someone unconditionally. I would see her at her most vulnerable, her most needy, and yet I would also see her truly magnificent strength, her limitless generosity, her courage, and I would feel her deep love. After a year of holding strong and hoping and crying and praying, I ended up standing next to her bed, leaning into her as the lines of pain and suffering in her face just smoothed out, and she gently sighed a final breath and left me with complete disconnection and utter desolation. Days, weeks, time passed. I realised that alone I now had no idea how to solve the new problems life presented. The kids, the community, my heart, all was swirling around out of control, so much hurt. I did not know if I could stay here, if I could keep breathing while never hearing her breath again. I had no idea if there was some new way, a new solution. How could we keep going? I'd be rich if I had $1 for every time someone says, "You overthink things, John." With the benefit of post-therapy understanding, I realise that this is a strategy to control aspects of my life, especially from childhood, that were too difficult to experience head-on. Losing my wife, my soulmate, saw life become very challenging for an overthinker. I slipped into a benign but very significant form of crazy. I was operating on an old solution that no longer added up or fixed stuff. I was lost and I was completely disconnected from me, from the world, operating like a clever fake, telling people how things were going. Just dandy, thanks. Doing great. While voices screamed constantly inside that had other things to say. As a middle-aged white Aussie male who had never been alone, I was spectacularly ill-equipped to raise 3 young kids alone, to keep the lights on, to heal my heart, deal with grief, meet the usual demands of community and work, and find a way to still keep things moving. I had raw scars inside and out and didn't tell anyone about them. And thinking stuff through was not nearly enough. It was fear, anxiety, it was a broken heart, it was anger, and it was shame. Someone gave me an Eckhart Tolle. I'm sure you know that one. The Power of Now. And a small light came on. I began to seek more conversations, to ask many questions, to hear people's experiences, to connect with their stories. In books and coffee shops and courses, I went to groups, I went to expos, lectures, libraries. I felt possibility creep back into my equations. People were generous. They shared, encouraged, and I learned. I was opening up to a new emotional language. Most blokes don't have that language we need to get through this stuff. And I found a new emotional language. And then slowly, emotional awareness. And then, after even more time, some degree of emotional understanding. The awful ridiculousness of the universe deciding to take the one person I could not do without started to lose some painful sting. Then became endurable. Then a bit of acceptance. And eventually it became a gift. In losing my direct connection with my soulmate, who was all to me, I had room now for learning new connections, with possibility, with myself, with others and the world in a different way. It felt strange, but in some ways I felt dishonoured and offered a reconnection with Glenn. I learned of models and solutions. I learned to resolve the paradox of being and not doing life. I learned of how connection is best achieved through letting go. I learned how to be present, mindful but not thoughtful. I learned it's my responsibility to forgive, to grow, and to be grateful. I realised that I was not the great bloke I had confidently declared to the world in my old life, that I was hung up on incorrect formulas that did not solve the problems, and to be connected to the new life rising out of the ashes of the old, I would need to be better as a bloke, as a person, to accept and learn and explore in a way that was less certain of anything, yet more confident of there being a solution for everything. I'd found a way. On a beautiful sunny March morning, just weeks before Glenn had died, I had walked with her from the doctor's to the car. She was really weak and so very frail. I had her on my arm. I was almost carrying her as we walked. She turned to me, she looked up, touched my cheek and said, "Thank you for all the times that you have held me up." My heart screamed inside my chest. This wonderful woman who had always given to me 27 years was thanking me for the simple act of holding her arm. I suddenly in that moment had perfect clarity of what it truly meant to love someone without boundaries and without sense. It was a moment of complete connection. And something like that cannot fail to change a man. In physics, a three-body problem is a problem with no solution, a problem of chaos. My life was chaos. Yet when you open up and connect through the chaos, you can find infinite solutions for that three-body problem. The gift of my tragedy is the learning and the acceptance and the growth. Three bodies that when I pay attention and connect to them, they mean I can touch that moment of powerful connection again without touching the pain or the tragedy. When I find that clarity and that connection, all those infinite solutions become one and they become real. Maybe you can reach out and find that moment too. Thank you.